the meeting to order. So for the public hearing, roll call. Commissioner Landowski.
Here.
Hollenbeck.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Millsap.
Here.
Gronimus.
Here.
And McNally and Franklin are absent. Proof of posting, the notice was posted in the upper and lower levels of the Amundsen Community Center, the Cambridge Post Office, Badger Bank, the village website. It was mailed to all neighboring properties and published in the Leader Independent. The public hearing is a rezone request for the property on the corner of Katie Court and Kenseth Way. Parcel number 0612-013-0527-1. It is currently zoned mixed use, and the request is to change it to a planned use development, a PUD, for the purpose of condominiums. The Cambridge Comprehensive Plan that we finished, was that last year? Did have this parcel listed as future use as high density residential. So with that, I'm running the meeting because our chair is not here, and so I didn't have an appointment of a chair on. So anybody who wants to speak, please come up, introduce yourself.
Are you guys going to talk? Go ahead. Oh, all right. Hi, my name is Andrea Masati. I am a resident of the Vineyards. I'm at 705 Merlot Lane. Just a couple things. So we bought our lot and built our home in 2018 going into 2019, and at that time the plat that was attached to our covenants showed two access points besides Vineyard Drive. It showed one onto 12, it showed one off of 134. Since then, one apartment building has been built, one is in the process of being built, one will be built when this one is done. There are 10 condos that have been put into the subdivision, and there is still only one access point for us to get in and out of our property. It has gotten so congested with only one in and out that another 10 units, or I believe it's 10 units, 2 in each, is going to cause even more congestion for us to be able to get in and out of our properties without traffic. There's always going to be traffic, but couple that onto the 72 additional apartments from the third one that was built to the fourth and the fifth one, the 10 additional condos that are built, the pizza pit. It's just that there's so much traffic now going through this subdivision that we have one way in and one way out. So I don't want the board to approve this plan because that's an additional 10 units for additional traffic for an already congested area of traffic. I don't believe that the two access points on 134 and Route 12 are anywhere near getting done or even talked about or even going to be able to be done. One of the reasons we built our home is because there was more than one access point into the subdivision. So that's my concern of the additional traffic, the additional people. And then the last thing I wanted to just state was you had mentioned that notices had been mailed to residents, and what I'd like to know is in those notices and what the statute is how close do those residents have to be. There appears to be a resident in my neighborhood who lives further away from me that got a notice in the mail. There are notices that there are neighbors of mine that are closer to the property line that didn't get notice. And so I don't think anyone's ever said how far away those notices needed to go to adjoining property owners.
I will clarify that. It is by state statute 100 yards, I believe, from the
100 yards or 100 feet?
Or 100. Let me see, I've got it right here. And I will say, I know one of your neighbors may have gotten one because she does own property closer within that radius.
Well, one of the neighbors who lives closer than I do didn't get one. Or actually, most of mine, I don't think any of my neighbors actually got one.
Most of the homes within the subdivision would not be in the radius.
They're not within 100,
No,
100
so
feet?
that is why it is posted on the website and in the newspaper and,
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
that clarifies that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. What's the status of 134?
we'll get to that later. Let's do the
Okay.
public comments and we'll talk in the regular meeting.
Hello, I
Hi
am
there.
Erin Berry. I live at 700 Merlot Lane. So I just have a question. Are there covenants and restrictions associated with this application?
And we're not back and forth right now. They'll be addressing that. But a reminder, the question before us today is rezoning. We're not looking at the development, it's rezone.
Okay,
But I'm sure the developer will be talking about that more.
sure. If it's
When we
strictly
get to the-
rezoning, then I can just kind of piggyback off of what Andrea said. And I've shared this before. It is highly congested, and my main concern is emergency services. We utilize them very frequently for my son, so just adding more traffic there with that one access point is really not ideal. And that is all related to zoning.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
Blake Sollenberger, 711 Kenseth Way. I'm also the president of the Vineyards HOA, so that's who I'll be speaking on behalf of today. We've discussed this as well, and echoing some previous sentiments. 20 additional tenants in 10 units, could be anywhere from 20 to 40 cars, with one access point. When the last high-density apartment building got not approved after the latest one did, the commentary at that meeting, I can't remember if it was Village Board or Plan Commission, but from Mark McNally was, until we get access points either through 134 or 1218, which I know is with the DOT, no more, was his words. We will not approve anymore. I think there is, I'm not saying down the road we wouldn't have an opinion about it. It's just at this moment, we just can't, we're bursting at the seams and we can't accommodate this anymore. So the Vineyards HOA, representing the 54 lots within the Vineyards, are getting overwhelmed with the continual build out without the necessary traffic infrastructure to support this many new tenants. The other thing too, even with current zoning under mixed use, that at least would be limited to commercial retail hours. It is what it is. If there was to be developments on that, then that's a little less of a concern. But I think we would be against rezoning at this time, but to be revisited at a later date. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else want to speak? If there's no one else to speak, we will, a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Also move.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll now go into our regular, regular commission meeting. Again, roll call will just carry over from the previous. 9. The agenda was posted in the upper and lower levels of the Amundsen Community Center, the Cambridge Post Office, Badger Bank, and the village website. Approval of the Plan Commission minutes from March 10th. Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from March 10th.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Motion carries. Any public appearances on anything other than the rezone? If not, move to new business, which is the rezone request for the parcel, which we were just discussing. I will just make a couple comments. public hearing is not for back and forth, but to address a couple of the questions that were raised. There are currently 2 entrances. The Woodhaven subdivision does have an entrance as well. That is a public road that can be used by any of those residents. We have met with DOT. They have said no, they will not allow another entrance onto Highway 1218. Nothing we can do about that. Our village board has told MSA, our engineers, to go out, finish their preliminary work. They've gotten preliminary okays from DOT on the Vineyard Drive, Lagoon Road. They're finishing up the work on that. Once that's done, the board has said they'll go out for bid on that. So they are moving forward on that entrance point. One other comment. Whatever may have been said by one board member cannot make a decision and cannot promise anything from future commissions or boards. So that may have been one board member's personal opinion, but they can't make decisions, just to clarify. So
Is
If-
there a,
It feels
sorry,
like public comment's getting debated here. Like,
I'm just
I feel
responding.
We're getting fact checked.
I'm just responding because you have questions. I'm responding. You know, what are we doing on the access points? That has been an issue that's been talked about a lot. The board has made the motion to move forward to go out for bids.
Is Mark McNally currently on the planning commission?
Today would be his last day, and he did not come tonight. So
Is Chuck, is he done?
today would be his last day too. He's not getting into town until later tonight. So
okay.
neither of them came. So
do you have a,
Did I hear you say that the 134 is approved to happen?
the board has approved our engineers to finish submitting the final paperwork to the DOT. Once we get the sign off from DOT, our board has said they'll go out for bid for that road. So
So
they
if
are,
there is to be an opening, that's where it would go,
yes,
in the village's opinion.
yes,
Okay.
yep.
Lisa?
Yeah.
Question for you. How long ago did the DOT say no to another access point onto 1218?
I want to say myself and our engineers met with them 6 months ago.
Oh.
It was recently. It was in all these discussions that we.
What was their reasoning? They just, they don't want
um,
that traffic out of another? Or they really don't have to have a reason?
They did not give us specific reasons. They have said in the past, we have said no, nothing has changed our mind. So it may have been on plats showing, and there is an easement through the properties up on that end for a road. If the DOT ever, just because it's platted doesn't mean we can make it happen if the DOT says no.
Right.
So,
They have the big hammer.
yeah.
So the timing on the 134, do we have, I know you're going out for bid, but how long do you think that will be?
I think we were hoping to be able to go out for bid within the next 2 months or so. So I don't know if we want to bring the developer up, and if we have questions, we can,
When that would go through, then that would give us 3 access points into the
Yeah.
vineyards, correct?
Drumlin Trail is one of them?
From Mackenzie top of 12, which that one, that area seems appropriate. But both the one through, what's the subdivision?
Woodhaven.
Woodhaven.
Why would I want to drive through
That's
someone
what,
else's
no, no,
neighborhood?
that's kind of what I'm getting at, is 2 of those are like residential areas where kids are playing. Like,
Right.
It-
That's what's stressful.
They are public streets, though.
I am
So,
it feels like you're persuading against us.
no, I'm just, but to say there's only one exit, there isn't just one exit. There are,
That makes sense for where the placement of the mixed-use development is, which is a major corridor with easy access for commercial and retail, which is what we're comfortable with.
my job is to give the committee facts. There are 2 entrances that residents can use.
As residents, Blake's point is pretty valid. Living in that neighborhood, that is where all the youngest kids live, is on that street where you're proposing that entrance, just so you know. And so we'd be okay with commercial where they're gonna come off of 12 and 18, but now to bring them through our streets where our kids are trusting that just our neighbors are driving through, we know have an eye out for them, and people are gonna be coming through to multifamily. Like, I think if it were single family, that would be a different story.
That's a fact.
They're
I
all-
think we're debating, and this is not public comment period
No,
anymore.
it
right?
is not
So we
public comment.
should move
It's-
forward with
yeah,
our developer.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
Shell, if you want to,
Well, I'm Shell Kasagan, representing the developers on this project, and
I'm Neil Pfaff, the civil engineer with Vera Becker Associates.
you know, we were here a month or so ago and went over a lot of the stuff that we had presented before and heard everybody's comment, and then I ended up meeting with the president of the village board and the president of the planning commission about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and Lisa, and we kind of just showed everything that we had laid out, and we adjusted things to try to satisfy everybody. On top of that, I had asked Lisa, you know, with the current zoning, what can you build on this, you know, without having to go to any planning commissions or anything? And Lisa gave me a list of probably 50 different things that could be built there. And a lot of them have, I understand the traffic thing that people talk about. I live in that subdivision. I live a block away. And, I mean, I currently don't have any issues getting onto 12 and 18 at all. I mean, it's sometimes busier around rush hour and stuff, but with the stoplight down by Quick Trip, you know, helps a lot, you know, because then you got at least traffic stop from one way. And then it's just a matter of, you know, the timing on the other one. But I've never had to sit there more than a minute at the very most. So anyways, we went over everything. And as far as some of the things that can be built there, I mean, there's, what, grocery stores and, I mean, things with a lot more traffic than
Fast food
what we're
restaurants.
presenting, you know. So,
Stores.
I mean, that's about all I can say. And if you get another entrance on the 134, I mean, that'll obviously help, you know, as well. But, and those 20 units, they won't be ready for, you know, several months, and the other building hasn't even started yet, so.
and
But-
at this point, I believe just the one has been approved. Don't quote me on that, but I know they've talked about additional, but I don't know that any additional have been approved yet.
Okay. So anyways, I guess with that, Neil can
Yeah.
go over some of the.
So what I brought with me today is you see an elevation in front of you. Also have the floor plan of each structure, which is identical structures. 5 total structures intended for 0 lot line. So there'd be a total of 10 units. The common areas would be served through an access easement and restrictions for aesthetics, such as the landscape plan presented to you in the packet. The reason
And
for...
I didn't include all the landscaping and stuff because today we're talking about the rezone.
Yep,
So-
understood. What we provided in the packet was fairly comprehensive, included grading, included stormwater management memo to meet all the village's intents, the DNRs, et cetera. The reason for the PUD, or Plan Unit Development, is purely because of setbacks. you're showing 5 units. The rezone with the mixed use currently does allow for residential as a portion of that. The comprehensive plan includes a, high density residential. So this would meet the density requirements. However, we came here to the board approximately about a month ago to get feedback, and we took those conversations and we tried to adapt the site plan to accordingly to meet the needs of the development. So again, this would be a 10 unit, total units with 5 buildings. And the elevations that they're showing, it comes with the back decks. This is 2-story, so single story, both the basement. So I misspoke there, with egress windows as possible. Some egress will have to be through window wells just because of the grade of the lot. Shel, do you know what the square footage of this building is?
The first level is about just under 1,500 square feet. And then part of the basement will be finished as well. So you'll probably have 2,200, 2,300 square feet finished. And then you got the porch, the screen porch as well on top of that.
And then going into the main topic is the site plan here. So this hatched area, we discussed this last time. You saw 2 connections, 1 connection to Kenseth Way. The proposed is now only 1 connection to Katie Court. That was provided by feedback from the Plan Commission. We're looking at a 20-foot road to serve all the properties, a turnaround area for fire protection, and then 0 lot lines. The subdivision isn't part of this discussion today, so this is just 1 lot. We're not actually proposing to subdivide it. That'll go through a subdivision preliminary plat and then a final plat. That'll also get reviewed. We do have areas dedicated for stormwater along the intersection of Kenseth Way and Katie Court. Those are sized accordingly to knock down the peak attenuation, total suspended solids, and provide infiltration requirements as required by not only the village but the state of Wisconsin. We also looked at clear zone, so the vision triangles to make sure that we're not obstructing the vision turning in from Katie Court or onto Katie Court. So this is going to be low grasses, aesthetically pleasing, with landscaping that allows a vehicle to view over that and does not.
And there's no standing water in there?
No, these are bioretention facilities, so they will have standing water up to 24 hours after a rain event.
But not long term?
Not long term,
Okay.
exactly. And they're not intended for like mosquito ponds. It's not a wet pond, but it's got plants in there. So typically you're not going to see the water because the plants are high density. What the proposed for the landscape for these ponds would be a lower flower, not to exceed 3 foot of height, but mostly flowering. Trying to get flowers throughout the season, so spring, summer, and then fall. So in addition, there's a few areas that we have, 3 feet of separation from the back of the deck to the neighboring property. However, there is to the north there is apartments along this property. We're trying to increase the separation to the greatest extent we can to still fit 5 buildings. So we're looking at 7.9 feet from the deck off of that property line. We're able to save those trees in the back, so we're trying to maintain that screening. So each ultimately, I believe the development would like to split these into a 0 lot line subdivision, or a 0 lot line. So each individual unit would own its own. However, there would be a common agreement or a deed restriction or a covenants that would allow for maintenance of the road, require what landscaping needs to look like, etc.
So the road would not be a public road?
It would not be a public road, so this would be owned, operated, and maintained by the occupants.
Okay, yeah,
So it's similar to a condo association, which happens fairly regularly.
yeah.
Right.
We've had a few of those in the village in the past. They've not always been the happiest situations where, the one thing that occurred to me was I remember hearing something about the fire department having to, can't really use that road, but you would run a hose down the length of the road to wherever they had to get to.
It would depend on where the fire was going to be at, because the first building is on fire, typically they're not going to want to drive past the fire.
This is true.
If the last building is on fire, they'd be able to stage within this area.
They can?
Yeah.
Okay, because that delays response otherwise. I know the fire department said it was okay to run a hose down, but it seems like that's not optimal.
Yeah, we also have hose layouts to show how this area gets served, that we coordinated with the fire department.
Now, are you putting a hydrant in there as well? I thought I saw that on
Yes,
one of these.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the requirements for a PUD is that 30% of the total PUD area has to be open space? Is that what you're accommodating
I
there?
believe we're exceed that fairly substantially. I don't have that number in front of me, but just looking at the area in general, you have all the stormwater area that gets credit for the open space.
It specifically says here, wetlands, steep rock hillsides are not considered usable open space.
Yep.
So
Yep,
I know
yeah.
it's not a wetland,
Yeah.
but it is
Wetland.
a retention or
Correct.
detention. It's a
Most
detention.
communities allow
Okay.
for stormwater management,
Yeah.
especially bioretention
As
facilities.
part of the open space.
This is part of the
Okay.
open space. Yep. I don't think that would be necessary to even count that though, to still hit the 30%
Okay.
requirement.
What's that?
The plan itself is not before us tonight. The question is the rezone tonight.
Right.
So there will be future meetings, like they said, with the division of the properties, with the question before us is the rezone.
And we're not really back and forthing.
No,
That's not a thing.
no,
But my,
yeah.
I want to be clear that we're doing a PUD which is creating the rules for the development at this point in time. So we're talking about setbacks and the amount of open space and side yards and all that stuff.
Yeah, as part of the zoning.
As part of what the rules are going
Yeah.
forward.
Mhm.
I'm still a little concerned about the proximity to the apartment to the north, as we were last time. It looks to me like you've done your best to take the footprint of the units and fit them, and it's pretty tight. Is there any way you can,
Well, we eliminated one of the buildings to the north, right? We just got the one building on the north lot line now.
it's the proximity to the apartments though that I'm
7 foot.
Yeah,
right?
7.4 feet, I believe,
Yeah.
off the deck. And then we're proposing screening along that back property.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
You can see on the, and then we're proposing an arborvitae or a
Right.
a screen that's gonna be there during the winter as well. The one thing, looking at the setbacks, the northern building, the apartment building is closer than allows for the setbacks. But
Yeah.
that happens, that it's happened all the time in the 80s, 90s, etc. So that makes this look a little more extreme because of that encroachment. So like I'm showing right here is a fairly extensive landscape plan, 2-block screening along Kenseth Way to make Katy Court entrance appealing, and then also the screening that's very important to that residence to the north, the multifamily.
Yeah, I can see that. I appreciate the effort. It just seems like there are still a lot of large units, and when I looked at the floor plan, it does seem like there's some, you could make them slightly smaller if you wanted to fit more setback on the side.
It isn't gonna make really a big difference. The floor plan, I mean, I think it's just under 1,500 square feet. You
Yeah.
could start getting smaller than that. It's pretty hard to unless
Couple
you.
feet here and there times 10 might add up. though.
Yeah, but if you only get a foot here or there, it's just, it's not gonna make a difference really to speak of.
I'm just, my concern is that we're putting units that are close to the lot line and they're not following the, you talked about doing the, sorry, bear with me. High intensity residential, right? Which a rear lot line I think is still 25 feet and you're at like 7.
7.4
Yeah, so that's quite a bit different.
to the deck.
Well, that's why, they do PUDs all the time just for that
I understand
reason.
that. That's why we're here talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
But
that's
that's
really
why we
close.
eliminated really just that one building along the north to try to, but
And then it's also gonna be close to whoever develops the lots on the southwest side.
yeah, and the building itself is how many feet? 20 feet?
What's that?
The building itself is 20
The
feet
building
outside.
itself is, the worst case scenario is this corner right here,
Yeah,
which is 10.7 feet.
yeah,
The structure, the main structure that you see adjacent to the multifamily is 17.7 feet to the foundation.
yeah, I can see that.
So that would be, roughly 8 feet, 7 feet, variance, or not a variance, but.
Well, and then to get the next diagonal row to fit in, you're 12 feet off of that lot line instead of 25.
Correct.
So that's considered a
Correct.
rear lot.
So you, this one would be 19.9 and then 21.5.
Mhm.
So roughly 5 feet.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not that side that I'm concerned about, it's the top and the north and the
The north
southwest.
side.
Yeah.
More concerning is the building adjacent to the multifamily.
That and then whatever comes in the future in the two lots on the bottom left.
I will clarify, the one lot is all the
The clinic.
health clinic.
Yeah.
That is one lot.
Yeah, okay,
So unless they were to subdivide and build something,
sure.
that is one lot. The other lot
It's gonna be the landscaper lot.
is a
correct?
it's going to be an office building with a garage in the back for the landscaping company. So landscaping, and I believe his wife does photography and offices.
Yep.
And so right now, that's
Right now.
what
So
those
I'm
two-
talking about like zoning is a semi-permanent condition,
Mhm.
so.
Is there any questions regarding the site plan, landscape plan, stormwater management, building, facade, elevations?
I don't think we have any purview to talk about design aesthetic here, so.
Not at this point.
I mean, what we're talking about was supposedly whether it's going to be high density or medium density, right?
We're
Mixed use,
Mixed use to
Mixed
PUD.
use.
mixed use, or
Okay.
the high density, the PUD for the purpose of high density.
Yeah,
We're
so
basi-
would any mixed use put as much on that piece of property as this is?
It could be a store, it could be a gas station, it could be a restaurant, it could be a motel, it could be, there's many things in our ordinances that are allowable under mixed use that don't need to come there for the board or the plan commission. There are things, and I did not bring down the ordinances, that are conditional uses as well, but there's, like Shel said, there's probably a list of 50 different types of businesses allowed under mixed use.
And we did call out that parcel to be high density, did we not?
We did in the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Is the future use of that parcel in the plan.
Just so I'm clear, if we recommend approval of this, we are recommending the current setbacks shown on that plan?
No,
Okay,
it would be a recommendation to the board to rezone this to a
To-
PUD.
PUD. And then, but as part of the PUD, it needs to have rules, right?
And that's where coming back with subdivisions of the parcel
Okay.
and the final
that's
plans and so forth.
Step 2 would be that part?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm,
Because you have a pretty aggressive timetable, it seems. That's,
Now, starting this year yet.
Okay.
May 25,
May.
rough grading, July, the utility installation.
Well, once you purchase the property, you need to start doing something with it. you know, I mean, you're paying interest on the land,
Right?
so.
But what I'm saying is this has to get approved before anything else gets done,
Right.
correct?
Mhm.
So the plans themselves aren't approved,
Correct.
and the design isn't approved. You just want us to change the zoning.
Right.
But with changing the zoning, you're getting a glimpse of what's going to happen in order to make
Right.
that piece of property used in that way. And already we're seeing that setbacks have to be shaved and roads have to be shaved.
Which is allowable under the PUD, which is why it's being rezoned as a PUD. So it doesn't have to meet the ordinance setbacks for high-density residential. The PUD waives those to allow for different setbacks.
And those are subject to public hearing at each and every step?
No.
Okay, so what happens then? If we approve the density, then they're going to come back and want to cause something to be shoehorned in here that is going to affect the neighbors because it's going to be a little close to the edges. Is there going to be an opportunity for those neighbors to react to that?
They can always come to meetings, they can always come to, even if there's not public hearings, public comments, share comments with the board, with the commission, and so forth. I'm trying to think if anything is mandatory for public hearing besides the rezone. At this point, it's,
But in our plan to have this as high density, or
it is.
so.
In my experience in going through a PUD, the actual PUD plan makes the rules that are approved. So if we look at that and say this is a PUD and it's based on that plan, those setbacks would be part of the PUD. That's my understanding. And if we're not comfortable with setbacks now, then we want to change them or not approve it, I think.
If it weren't high density, if it went to the next level, whatever that is, would they still be able to put that much in there, or would it be scaled back in such a way that it's a little more comfortable to live with?
Well, I think
We're not looking high density or medium density, we're looking at a PUD.
PUD.
a PUD is basically taking like a medium density residential, but changing it a little bit to fit the site because they couldn't meet the rules.
Yeah, yeah.
So for instance, like the 70% maximum on the site, if they had to fill 80 to get this many buildings in, then that PUD would be basically asking for 80% of the fill of the site.
And when we've done that in the past with other areas in the village, usually we've ended up with roads that are difficult to plow, or we've ended up with other things that have been
Not necessarily, I mean, private roads, we're not plowing. In any condo association, flats,
and
we're
we've never
not.
been asked to take any of those back
No,
over.
and we won't because they're not built to village standards. They're maybe narrower, they may be, so they are part of a condo association or a homeowners association. I will say back when the whole Vineyard subdivision was rezoned, that was rezoned as a PUD because it wasn't sure what was all going in that subdivision yet. So the PUDs offer flexibility that normal zoning doesn't. The last time it was before this board on that property, it was high residential, but a much larger apartment building that would have had more units. And that was just a rezone to the high density.
But they
So-
would have been able to meet the setbacks and the road sizes and other things, right?
But at least double the units.
Well, up 70,
cars and
wasn't that
traffic.
some ridiculous number of units?
You know, so that's the give and take between regular zoning and the PUD.
But the regular zoning is there for a reason. It's because people have found that those numbers work by and large. And then when we abandon that and we go off into the territory, unknown territory on our own, it seems like you take that on, you take on that risk that you're going to create a problem child.
That's the commission and the board's job. I mean, just because, you know, like we said, it's currently zoned mixed use, but in our smart growth, we have it as high density residential. So right there's a conflict that
Yep.
the commission and the board have to decide what is best for this property.
Yep.
Is a possible gas station or grocery store, or do you want, it's private property. We can't guarantee an office building is going to be built there, or,
Right.
it's somebody coming before us with a plan saying, I want to purchase this property. It meets the smart growth plan. We're asking for a rezone, and
Well-
that's what's.
Well, here's my thinking on this, and I could be completely wrong, but if we're going to strike out on our own with this PUD, where we do start to modify the what the rules are, and downsize some of the things that we put in as buffers, is there an opportunity to get an opinion from our engineer as to what the potential downsides for those modifications are? That would say, well, in the future, you're likely to see this, or you're going to have that to deal with.
I will say it's been shared with our engineers. They have not given comments,
Well, we asked them.
They're not going to project in, they're not going to project what problems, yes, we know the setbacks are smaller than if it's a regular zoning. That's something we're saying yes or no to.
Yeah, but and then we need to know what the downsides of. I mean, why did we have setbacks that were a given size in the first place?
And one clarification, we're not going out on our own. The PUD is a zoning in our ordinances.
Yeah.
That gives, so it's not.
But we're making the rules for that PUD.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's where those things that would have already been set in stone by the zoning are now being made anew.
And that is your guys' decision. Do you want a PUD with residential that meets our comprehensive plan? Or do you want to keep it zoned what it currently is, which could be a multitude of
Other things.
items put
You
there
don't know.
without any input from anyone?
And
just
all
getting
I'm-
a building permit.
And all I'm asking for, or trying to get onto the table is there, if we're going to make some of these decisions, and I think we can make that happen, we want to go into it with our eyes open so that we don't make a problem for the future. That's all I'm looking at.
And I'm not sure what types of problems, but, anything built has to still meet all building codes and everything else that, so it's,
Well, some of those building codes are setbacks, and
no,
well,
building codes aren't.
well, for placement on the lot and that kind of thing, those are codes of sorts. If we modify those, we'd like to do that in an intelligent fashion so that we don't get ourselves into trouble 5, 10 years down the road. That's all I'm saying. And
Yeah.
maybe we can get an opinion on that. Give them go down to, from 25 feet, go down to 7 feet. Okay, fine. Tell me what, Mr. Village Engineer, tell me, what am I looking at? What potential problems am I going to have? So that's the only thing that I would be saying. If we're going to do those kinds of things, we do it with our eyes open.
Right, but each PUD, I understand what you're saying. Each PUD is unique. I mean, we're not
Yes.
setting precedents where
No.
Now,
No.
every,
Oh, no, no, yeah,
every
yeah.
future one can go
No,
that
that's
small.
right, that's right, that's
Okay.
right. And, but if we do go that small, I would like to say with impunity that we did that because we knew it wasn't going to cause a problem.
And, something similar to look at, you have, like Deerfield, the subdivision around the Dream Park is something very similar to this, where I'm assuming that was a PUD because they're much smaller lots, they're, so it's, and that's
Yeah.
the decision for you and the board. Do we,
As far as worrying about something that could go wrong in the future, I mean, you've calculated stormwater, you've got the ponds, sorry, not pond. You've got the, basically rain garden areas set up to get the water where it needs to go, and so it's not sitting, and it's gonna be graded appropriately in the future when they do the final. I guess I'm just, I actually think that these 0 lot line, 2 family structures are a good idea for this location.
I do too.
I think it's less dense than a commercial building that would be there. There would be less traffic going in and out. I'm just a little concerned about setbacks. And I don't know that there's feasible way to get the setbacks deeper. I guess that's where I was trying to go with that question about maybe making the building a little more efficient, because it looks like when I looked at the floor plans, some of the corridors are a little wider than would be in a normal residential house.
I think we squeezed it as much as we could.
Yeah, with that, we squeezed the site plan based off this building.
Yeah,
The encroachment, or not the encroachment, I shouldn't use the word, the setback is more encroached on, I guess, by the deck than
Yeah.
the foundation. Because you're looking at anywhere from 3 to 5 feet
Yeah.
to meet the setback, where we would not have to go through a PUD. We'd just do a rezone to medium density residential.
okay.
As I'm sitting here listening to this, I'm picturing myself sitting on that deck. And right behind it, you got a kind of a screen of trees or
Correct.
landscaping or whatever you got.
Yep.
And you're roughly 7 feet from those trees or whatever you're going to have.
Yeah,
there.
to the property line.
Well, to the property line, right.
Yep.
Which,
That's from those lights to that wall.
yeah, so for me, that's like, I don't know, if I were to come in there to look to buy that piece of property, I think I'd have a hard time, wanting, I mean, of course, depending on the price and everything else, but it just seems like it's really, really tight for somebody to come in there and say, I want to live there, and I'll look within from there to there. That's all I have in my backyard. That's just me.
yeah, and that's going to be a buyer's decision.
Yeah, of
They
course.
know the unit they're buying, is it feasible to not have a deck on those 2 properties? If people don't want a deck, that gives a little more,
That would,
but people know what property they're
Right.
buying. Some don't mind being,
yeah.
on a
true.
busy highway.
Right.
Others want a big half-acre yard, they know what they're buying.
And you
And-
put the screening on too. You could have a solid screening there, so if you're sitting there, nobody could see it,
Well, right.
You can do that,
So
Yeah.
25-foot setback is fairly standard, what I see for communities for a residential subdivision.
Yeah.
Their downtown districts, or the older areas of towns, are typically only 5 feet.
Right, right.
Or 0, depending
Yeah.
on the city. Obviously, the bigger cities, such as Madison, Milwaukee, Chicago, et cetera, it's 0 setback.
Yeah, I mean, you go into the east side of Madison and
Yeah.
there, I mean, you can't even walk between the houses. So, yeah, I
People know what they're buying.
right,
Yeah.
that's true.
We can't, if, you and I may want a different yard. Some may use a deck, some may not. It's, yeah. Yeah.
But still, the question today is, you know, is it high density or isn't it high density? And that's the rezone for that. And the consequences of that are what we're going to deal with as a follow-on.
It's a rezone to a PUD, which for high density purpose, but the rezone is for a PUD from mixed use.
And then I guess my follow-up question is, if we say yes, we recommend a rezone to a PUD, we also have to recommend that they follow the setbacks, or we recommend something else, right?
We could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we could say a PUD following medium density residential with a 12-foot setback or something, whatever we think is appropriate. And then it's whether or not you want to pursue that, I guess, would be the next question. And I don't like the idea of not allowing developers to help build up Cambridge and do a nice project. We need housing. And it sounds to me like the size of this is probably based on a pro forma financially of doing something on this parcel with that amount.
You have the timetable and funding in here. I don't know if this is the time to bring that up, but you said privately funded. Do you have the funding now? Do you have the?
We're working on
The reason I ask
Yeah.
is we don't want to get the thing started, and then there's a big issue that can't get completed.
We have to have the property financed by the end of May.
And that's just the property.
Yeah.
Then are you building the units? Not you personally, but
Yeah. Yep.
there'd be a guarantee that those would get done. It's not going to be a half-ass project.
Right.
Yeah, just, there's a reason I'm asking that,
Yeah,
so.
no, that's,
I appreciate the work you guys have put in. You really did listen to, all the comments we brought up, a month ago. I think this is a good use of this as opposed to, the apartment building that was going to go in there. I agree, it'd be ideal if we could have bigger setbacks, but if we define setbacks, then this doesn't work at all, because that's southwest, we're down to 2.5 feet.
I think that's where I was going, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I also looked at we're not here to approve the grading plans or anything like that, but I don't, based on what I saw, and maybe I'm not a civil engineer, but it didn't look like you could get maybe one of the group of two with exposed windows without a window well.
Correct.
Yeah, the north.
So the lot is dropping off towards Katy Street. So you're going to set a finished floor elevation on your upper side that has potentially 1 foot of exposed concrete. Or you facade that, obviously.
Yeah.
But the bottom side, you can get 2.5 to 3 feet.
Right.
So to get your egress, you're still going to need a short well.
Right. Okay.
However, you're going to see the majority of that window.
Yeah. Yeah, which is nice. I think inside it's nice. Would there be any monumental signage or any kind of signage to go with this?
signage, you said?
Yeah,
We haven't, we're gonna put a signage in the front.
like a
there.
name to it and put a sign up for it?
I think the last one we had was Serenade Villas.
Okay.
So it's Mediterranean themed.
Yeah.
And we changed the architectural on the building, so, like you had mentioned, I think, in a previous meeting about the back of the building
Oh,
facing
right.
the road. So we did take that into consideration and fixed up the back side as well.
It's a tricky site. And, I mean, to do this on it, I think it's tricky. As long as, I feel generally good about the drive into it, as long as the fire department's okay with it.
Yeah, I've talked to Joe Evans, the
Okay.
fire chief, about it.
When I first saw the site plan, I was a little concerned about how close to Kenseth it is with the drive. I know it meets the
The
code,
turning,
but-
the proximity from the center of the intersection
Yeah.
to that.
yeah,
The reason why it is like that is to be able to fit that
Yeah.
building in.
yeah,
And we did keep the minimum width of the road.
Yeah.
So we tried to keep that separation from the intersection,
Yeah.
just because you don't want stacking.
right.
Was there going to be a sidewalk on either side of Kenseth in there?
Did we talk about, we did talk about sidewalks on the, on the other side of Kenseth. I don't,
We did talk about that being a desire going forward
Yeah.
for developments, though,
Yeah.
having a sidewalk. And I think if kids ended up living in this area, having a sidewalk and an area to cross would be a good idea. That doesn't help the lot line setback on Kenseth with the plantings, because there's probably not enough room to do.
Well, the sidewalk would be,
Just Kenseth, is that just Kenseth Way you're talking?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's,
so the sidewalk would actually be within the right of way.
oh, sure.
So there'd be no
It's
plantings.
in the, yeah,
There'd be no
I'm seeing
plantings
it now.
that'd be
in the
impacted.
right way.
Some communities require a half a foot, and
Yeah.
then the side, so property line, half a
Half a
foot
foot.
sidewalk. Some communities want the sidewalk right on the property line.
Yeah.
So the landscape plan would not be impacted by
Okay.
the proposed sidewalk.
Any other questions, comments? Anyone want to make a motion?
Well, we heard initially from the public meeting that the area is getting peopled to a great degree more quickly than we can accommodate the ins and outs. And what we're doing right now is we're going to make a decision to make it a mixed use or make it a high-density residential, which puts more people there as opposed to something else that might come in the future that we don't know. I mean, it's easy for local government to always kick the decision down the road, and then we lose out on a growth opportunity. So it's a matter of whether or not we think that this plan would be an adequate place for people that live in Cambridge to live, and something you could point to and be proud of, as opposed to, oh, that was a mistake, why did we do that? And it doesn't look like a bad mistake, it looks pretty nice. So,
Well, I think it also sort of protects us in that we know what it is. If you go with mixed use and it stays with what it is, we don't know what could end up in there.
yep, yep.
And that, now it's a crapshoot.
And it's valid concerns about the ins and outs, but now that we're in the final rungs of getting the 134 connection, that will definitely help. That's
And
what
this
we
at least
push
limits it to
forward
10 people?
Correct.
Well, 10 units.
10
units.
units, 10 units, 20 people. Huh?
I live up in Woodhaven. I'd be looking at it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't bother me. I mean, I think the biggest issue is the traffic right now. I think isn't that your biggest, I know this isn't a give and take, but
Yes.
And just speaking as not the HOA, that's what my public comment was, but gentleman on the end, I'm sorry, it is, it's a fair point, right? Like, we know what this is, what it could be later. That's just Sunbury resident, not HOA.
I'm not so good with my ears anymore.
I was just
we noticed that.
appreciating his comment at the end there.
Well, I would like to make a motion, correct me if I don't do this right, please. I would like to make a motion that we approve the PUD.
Recommend to the village board.
Recommend it to the village board, yes.
And again, your recommendation to the village board is to
Approve,
approve the change in zone.
right, to a PUD.
I would second that.
Any other comments, questions? Otherwise, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And that would be on the village board agenda next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Unfinished business, we have none. In correspondence, we have none. Any other such business that can legally be brought before the committee, or comments, questions for staff?
Did you hear anything from the state about lighting up the intersection of 12 and 18?
Not yet. I do know we need to do some work there to finish off the new Quick Trip parcel.
Okay.
So not yet.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
I'm going to ask another month later, how's the building inspector situation going?
I was gone this last week, medical leave. I'm supposed to be meeting this week with the Deerfield administrator.
For shared service, yeah. Okay.
Yep.
They don't have their own, right?
No, they were in the same situation as us with the same building inspector. So we had talked about doing it. They had a previous administrator who was working on it. He left, so the new administrator is, I talked to her a week before and told her I'd touch base again once I got back, and we were going to sit down. There were a couple of things we had to talk about with.
I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
The, on 18, the building that started to be constructed without a building permit that's been sitting there for a long time, that looks
Oh,
like
the
it's
one right on
going
18, the yeah.
What's the process? What's happening? Anything?
Last I heard from the building inspector, they had him a stop order to stop working. I
Yeah.
believe they were fining them for working without a permit. I haven't talked to them recently. They were supposed to be submitting the
Okay.
applications. I don't know if they have and if they've been approved yet, but
Okay. I mean,
And
it
it
would be
bothers
nice.
me that they're a
It just sits
construction
there.
company and they're,
Yeah.
When they know better.
and they
Yeah.
didn't get a permit.
Yeah.
yeah,
to
exactly.
build
They know
this
better.
big building.
But I also don't love that it's been sitting like that for so long.
Yeah.
And if it were
They did
permitted,
have
they'd
a
have
stop
time.
order at one point, and then they started working again. And so that's when they went back in and,
Okay.
Shut 'em down.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
A little troublesome.
yeah. Anything else? If not, a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Hey, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.